friends. Welcome to this week's episode of Not Your Mama's Podcast. And today we have Megan Stander, the founder and CEO of Raising Mama, dedicated to improving the postpartum experience for mothers. Megan's journey into motherhood sparked her mission to support new mothers with eco-friendly baby products and valuable resources. Megan, thank you for doing the good Lord's work. It's so nice to have you on the podcast today. Um, so what are some common challenges new mothers face during that postpartum period? And, how can we address them?
I mean, there's the laundry list, right? And I think it's different for everyone, but I think the kind of main things that everyone experiences are a huge identity shift, especially, when going from no kids to one kid. It's a shock to the system.
Oh, yeah.
More the sleep deprivation side of it. So there's figuring that out. Breastfeeding issues are really common, body image issues. If you're working, navigating that transition back to work. And then the kicker for me was just like the mental load of it all and the physical load of it
Yeah.
all. So I think that I mean there it's not as easy as like what's the solution. I think that solution is there needs to be like a holistic approach where you're tackling it from all ends. So yeah, I mean it's kind of like a where do I start
Yeah,
question.
well, exactly. And I felt when I fed my first kid, it knocked me off my feet, like the breastfeeding was challenging, going from working to not working was also like a huge like identity shift. And I think it's important to have, resources like you to kind of help women navigate that because it is tough. Like it is a huge identity shift and it knocked me off my feet. And one of the reasons why I started the podcast was because I felt so lost in my own self. I wanted to feel like productive and still working and, kind of, you know, get let everyone know that like we're all in it together. And in
Yeah.
order to be our best self, we need to have like good mental health as well. And I love that you brought that up, like also having like that good mental space.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've done is that we try to get to women while they're pregnant. And that's so
Mhm.
hard to do because when you're pregnant and it's your first child, you really just don't know what you're in for, even though, people have warned you, but they don't want to scare you either.
Yeah.
And so it's very common that it is a shock after they have birth. And we try to lessen the effects of that shock and prepare them um, through, information and resources. And because everything, I think when you're pregnant, it's a lot about birth. Birth is scary. It's scary
Yeah.
thinking
I
about that
was
happening.
terrified.
Yeah. It's hard to think about like what comes after.
Hmm.
So kind of what we've found is that maternity leave information is kind of something that people really care about, probably because it's related to money.
Yeah.
And so that's where we start. And then from there, we can kind of build on that.
Yeah, and I think it is important to start ahead. I kind of like that you want to grab them before the baby, and like develop even that relationship with like you, like mentoring them and just kind of preparing them and knowing that they're not going to be completely lost and left alone. Parents, you need The Addicted Child, A Parent's Guide to Adolescent Substance Abuse by Richard Capriola. It's a must-have for understanding teen substance use and learning the warning signs every parent should know. The Addicted Child, A Parent's Guide to Adolescent Substance Abuse by Richard Capriola. And here's the kicker. Richard spills the beans on explaining substance used by today's adolescents and how drugs work in the teen brain. He's even included important warning signs for self-harm and eating disorders and how to find the right help for your teen. And the best part is, you're getting all of these mind-blowing insights without breaking the bank. If you're a parent or know someone who is, this book is going to be your secret weapon. Kindle or paperback, grab your copy on Amazon or go to helptheaddictedchild.com. Insights in this book are pure gold. And spread the word. share the love, and let's empower ourselves with knowledge. Could you share some insights, into the, maternal mental health and its impact on the new mothers?
Yeah, so maternal mental health is tricky because part of becoming a mother is your priority shifting and you taking care of someone else. And you are, the focus becomes on the child. And so more than ever, you have to learn how to advocate for yourself
Hmm.
like more fiercely than ever before. And it becomes really evident too that society doesn't really support mothers
Yeah.
as well as they can. And so I think that, building these habits and um, also, if you weren't working on yourself in certain ways as much before you had kids, doing that after you have kids is going to help your mental health like overall.
Yeah, I feel like we learn so much about ourselves when we have children, like triggers and like things that are frustrating us or
Yeah.
whatever. Just like they really teach you a lot about yourself. And I love that work on yourself as a mother and like to get that mental health for you. Like, I think it's important to like take that inward look because it really does make a difference in how you parent. And like I said, the biggest lesson about yourself is if you have a kid. I mean, I feel like I
Yeah.
so much about what I can tolerate, how strong I am, you know what I mean? And how much I really can get done in a day too. So there's always like the positive stuff too. It's like, wow, like I am woman, I can do all these things, like watch me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, look how good I am at problem solving. And then it's like, oh, maybe I'm a little bit, not as strong in this area of my life. So I need to like, work on that. So I think it really shows what your strengths are as well.
It's transformational for sure because you're pushed to the limits.
Hmm.
And so you are forced in a way to think a little bit harder about. I mean, like you use the word trigger. I mean, it's so overwhelming, I'd say is the best word
Yeah.
that you have to start like making plans to figure it out because it's not just, you know, your relationship with your partner at stake. It's not just like your job at stake. These are like the common like um temperature checks when it comes to mental health, like knowing
Mhm.
where you're at is like how are your relationships, how's your ability to work and be productive, but now it's also like your children and they're little malleable creatures and you want to be a good mom. So
Yeah. So Megan, what advice do you have for mothers that are actually struggling to find support, and resources during their pregnancy and postpartum journey?
I think it really depends on the mom, but the things that I mean, because it depends on your personality or introvert, extrovert. Do you want to go out and meet people, or do you kind of like being at home with your baby? Um, and I think that the things that I found that really work are, and this is not what you would think, but I found it difficult to connect. Like I live in a neighborhood. Everyone's kind of like in their boxes and whatever.
Mhm.
One thing I did was I did become less shy about meeting people online. Like somebody reached out in like a local group. I they asked me advice on something and they suggested lunch and like I went and did it and that person is now one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Um, Putting yourself out there, I mean, having more conversations with other people. I think that like the number one thing that women say help them is having a support system. And
Mhm.
you can't have a true support system by making friends. And so I think that you do need to try to make friends. Number two, I do think that social media is a great place for support. Um, and there's also like online support groups. One of them, a great one is Centerline Community. Um, but I also think podcasts, honestly, are great
Yeah.
for finding info and resources and stuff like that. So that would be my advice.
No, I love that. And women, we are creatures of, we like to more like we like to talk more, we like to gather around. Like I really do think it's important that we have friends. I mean, and have people that are kind of going through the same situation together, so it doesn't feel like you have to be like in a support group, but you have friendships that support you during your transition and going through those life changes together. And I think it's important. And I love how you kind of stepped out of your comfort zone and like did something you wouldn't normally do, like meet someone online. And now look at that. That's like your best friend. So I love that.
Yeah, another thing you can do is like, this is kind of weird, but like doing other people favors. Um, like if somebody posts and I don't know, a neighborhood group, they need help with something, like helping other people really does over time, um, it helps you in the long run if you ever need help with something. So
Um, exactly. And I know sometimes, as new moms, we tend to not prioritize ourselves as much. How can mothers, prioritize their self-care, amidst all the changes and the schedules and the responsibilities? What do you suggest for someone trying to find that balance?
this is a hard one. But I think the main thing is that we need to uh redefine what we see as self-care, because it can be
Mhm.
the stereotypical thing of like self-care is going to get a pedicure or like going to, I don't know, like even take a shower. I hate that example.
Or a cup of tea.
Yeah, but I think a good form of self-care is also just um being able to know what emotion you're feeling when you're feeling
Mhm.
it. It's that
Mhm.
self-work, because if you don't know what's going on internally, it's much harder to find solutions for what's happening. I think even just taking 5 minutes to slow down, I think slowing down is a form of self-care. Um, but I think even scheduling it in, period, like putting
Yeah.
it on your calendar, being assertive about it, being assertive is huge because moms are so naturally giving and it's wonderful. But sometimes, depending on your partner, I mean, you need their support for you to take care of yourself, and you have to just straight up tell them.
Yeah. Well, Megan, it is time for the Power Mom Chronicles, and I cannot wait to dive into your answers. And my first question to you is, what's a game-changing lesson life has taught you?
A game-changing lesson life has taught me is that intuition is a powerful thing.
Hmm.
And looking backwards, I think if I had listened to it more, I would be in a different place. Um, and also just giving myself lots and lots and lots of grace. Um, that because, we do things wrong, and motherhood is extremely difficult.
Hmm.
And being kinder to yourself helps with that.
And reflecting on your journey, what practical lessons or insights can our listeners apply to improve their own lives?
I think that like understanding your childhood and how it's impacted your personality,
Hmm.
and ways of managing stress, and how you choose your relationships, I think that's really important. Like even if you didn't have any crazy abuse or anything in your childhood, I think people often overlook that aspect, and diving deep into that can help you improve your life a lot. It has a trickle effect.
Hmm. And offer a piece of wisdom for moms or anyone really striving to find their strength and voice.
Yeah. So, um, I always say this to my friends too, but talk to yourself as if you were your own daughter. Talk to yourself as if you're looking at her. She's like 8 years old, or even just how you would giving your friend advice. I think it's inside of us already, but we need to start taking our own advice and rebuilding that inner voice into something that's positive, kind, forgiving, encouraging.
Yeah. And the best advice you've ever received. Mhm.
Make sure you make your own money and aren't financially dependent on someone.
That is that is good advice. Well, Megan, thank you for coming on this week's episode of Not Your Mama's podcast. It was such an honor to have you on. All of her links are down below in the show notes. Don't be shy, go say hi, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much.